All right, everybody. Welcome back in to another episode of the MARK LESKO podcast. Joined by a great guy, a great player, a guy I followed from the beginning at Penn State. Sean McHugh, welcome in, man. It's great to have you on.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Sean, first of all, it's an honor to have you on here. As I said, I'm a diehard Penn State fan, diehard Steelers fan, and what you did for Penn State, what you did for the Steelers, I thank you for what you did for my teams. You were a big contributor on those teams.
Oh, I appreciate it. I kind of look at it the reverse of I'm very grateful to have had the experience with Penn State and the Steelers, and just awesome memories and times I truly cherish.
Good. Sean, in the short time that I've been talking to you, man, you motivate me just watching your videos, what you're doing now. You're definitely a motivated guy, a hardworking guy, and I can tell the Penn State football work ethic and the Steelers work ethic has certainly carried into what you're doing now. So it's good to see.
Yeah, well, I think those things, they don't ever leave you. It's you got to figure out how you channel them into different avenues. But the lessons you learn, whether it's the locker room, the field, college, pro, doesn't matter. It's like those things, like, they become ingrained in you, and you can't let them go. Which I think it's a good thing. They're really good habits and lessons that were learned. And you mentioned the social media. Like, I'm really new to social media. As far as trying to put content out regularly. So it's been kind of a lot of trial and error, but having some fun with it. And I love to, share the business stuff I'm doing. But really it's a lot of fun to share, football stories and how it kind of relates to, what people are doing today. And because I do what I call, from the locker room to the boardroom, where I share a lot of the leadership, things that I've learned from coaches, other players, my time in corporate. So it's been a lot of fun to kind of, go back and share some of those things.
Absolutely. It certainly carries over. I can say personally, my Penn State education has done a lot for me. It definitely helped me establish a good work ethic. And that's just going to school there. I didn't play a sport. So I can only imagine what it's like being an athlete, not only at Penn State, but for Joe Paterno. So you're from Chagrin Falls, Ohio.
Yep. East of Cleveland.
Yes. Columbus is actually closer to you than State College, so I'm glad you chose State College.
Yeah, so my Final Four when I was a senior in high school, it was Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, and Penn State. And we took a trip to State College summer going into my senior year, and that's all it took was be back on campus, for the third or fourth time. And as soon as we drove, through campus, I'm like, this is it. I want to commit today and let them know I'm coming. And that was all. And I don't regret a second of it. When I was there at Penn State, we had some down years record-wise, but I wouldn't trade that experience for a national championship, undefeated seasons. As much as I wish we would have put more W's on the board for the fans, that whole time and experience at Penn State is far more valuable to me than wins and losses.
Good. Yeah. No, it's good to hear you say that. First question, John. Is that what drew you to Penn State, just being on campus?
Yeah, and I think, I grew up in a household where I was very fortunate to have both parents around, and they were, I would say, on the stricter side. And aligned very well with Coach Paterno's messaging, the grand experiment. My parents wanted me to go get an education. And that was their primary focus for me. Football was secondary. And I always dreamed of going to a big traditional university, kind of like you draw it up or see in a movie. And that's what Happy Valley was to me. Ohio State's a great school. Michigan's a great school. Notre Dame's probably the closest as far as, the campus part goes. But there's something special about Happy Valley. And beyond Paterno and all the people that I met and was a part of my recruitment, Just being there, it was like, man, this is where I need to be. And I had that same feeling every time I'm back there. And I'm back in State College quite often. We're just up there for alumni weekend, for their Letterman's weekend. My wife's a Penn State alumni. So it's, any opportunity we get to be back there, it's a very, very special place for us beyond just the football part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've always explained it that way, Sean, because, I grew up 25 minutes outside State College. I just passed the stadium coming home tonight from the gym. It looks a lot bigger. It's looking good, man. Like my route from the gym, it's sticking out more. Like you can see, the newer part, and it's huge.
Yeah. I was fortunate. This was probably March, April, to lean on some of my connections and got a little kind of behind the scenes tour of the stadium. Got to see parts of the stadium I've never been in, and I played there for 4 years. But seeing kind of the direction it's headed, some of the upgrades, I'm really, really excited. I think it's the right time for Penn State. New coach is kind of the flipping of another chapter, if you will. So I think the timing of it is absolutely perfect. And I'm really excited to see what's all done.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be really big this year. Like I think the largest seated capacity in the country, and then next year I think it's going down a little bit. But it doesn't matter. Our fans are the best in the country. We could have 50,000. It would still be louder than 99% of the stadiums in the country. But
there's no question. It's funny. I split time. Like I said, I'm in State College a lot, but I would call Michigan home, and we're about 20 minutes outside of Ann Arbor. And so I got University of Michigan right down the street. I got Michigan State about an hour away. And everyone loves to talk about the big house and how big it is. And I'm like, I'll tell this to any Michigan fan, player, whoever, I don't care. That is the least intimidating stadium to play in. It's not loud. The seats are tiny, which is why they cram so many people into there. Just not a fan of the big house. I'm not going to pull any punches on it. It's not that impressive compared to playing in Beaver Stadium. And this is before all the expansion. There's nothing like a hyped game in Beaver Stadium.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, it is a special place. I've always said that about Penn State. Just as a student, it has everything. And I was there. My freshman year was 2011. So I did a walk-on tryout for Joe, and then everything happened with the scandal. Penn State, only a school like Penn State could go from what it was, go through something like that, and come out on the other side. I mean, Big Ten champions 2-3 years later.
Yeah.
Just a total turnaround. And only a place like Penn State could do that to me, and only a fan base like Penn State would back them like they did. It is a special place. Yeah.
No, I think you make an excellent point. And, I look at like Michigan State, and just because I'm familiar because it's so close, they've gone through some trouble as well. And there's no sign of them really coming out of it. And I think a lot of what you said, is much controversy as there was, is I think a lot of what helped Penn State survive, and like you said, come out on the other side without really missing, too much in between, is a foundation that, Paterno built. And I think the alumni base, not talking about Letterman and athletes, but their love for the university and, the pride in the university. I think you had a solid foundation, almost to the point where, I look at it like roots and underground, right? Like you can chop the tree down, but as long as you don't touch those roots, like it's going to grow back. That's kind of how I look at Penn State and kind of that whole, period of time where there was some uncertainty and uneasiness. I knew from being there, I'm like, Penn State's going to come out okay out of this on the other end. It's not what we want. It's not going to be pretty, but they'll be okay because they have a strong foundation. Those roots are firmly in the ground. And it's going to take a whole lot to ever knock that tree over.
Yeah, that's what Matt Campbell said, kind of said today in his Big Ten Media Day presser. He said there's a tradition here that we're going to honor. And that is Of all the things that I like about Matt Campbell, the one thing that I really, to me, really set it, brought it home for me is like, all right, I like this guy. This is the guy for us. Is his respect for the letterman, his respect for the history of Penn State. And I talked to you about it. You had commented on one of my Instagram videos. The fact that he's embracing the letterman is amazing.
Yeah.
That is, to me, that's a lot of people don't realize how important that is, that they're embracing you guys. They're embracing the history. You guys not only can give so much advice, but you guys have connections. You guys are working. You guys are out in the real world. So many connections for these football players that they can talk and meet you guys, and then be like, hey, I'm graduated. I want to get into this. And then you guys can help them, guide them, not only at Penn State, but after Penn State. I mean, I love it.
Yeah, and it's it's even more than I expected. When he first was hired, he talked and mentioned some of the things he was interested in doing, and about the tradition of Penn State and getting Letterman involved more. But he's doubled down on it. I don't know how much to really share, but I'm part of a couple of committees that are going to be directly involved throughout the season with current players. Also helping out on the recruitment side. In this day and age, recruiting is a whole different ballgame with NIL and transfer portals. But I get the sense from the Letterman community that everyone's really excited to be a part of the program. And also understand like our time has come and passed, and we, I'm not trying to be, part of the team or decision making. I don't think any Letterman has that right. And I'll speak out very candidly about that as well. Like, just because you're a Letterman doesn't mean you should have a say in who the next coach is. Like, that's not your job. Like, so I've kind of stayed back from that. But I also think that what I like about Coach Campbell is he's acknowledged the past of Penn State. He's acknowledged the tradition. He wants to continue to build on that, but also make it his team and create some new traditions. And as he should, in my opinion, like we said, the foundation of Penn State, that's not going anywhere. I think it's good to remember how, everything came to.
That's a nice shirt, by the way.
Yeah, I love this one. Yeah, it's funny. It's been so hot. I haven't worn it in forever. I'm like, I'm going to go put on one of my favorite Penn State shirts because at least he'll be inside and can get away with it.
Well, Sean, Justin Kirpakis, he's a guy that I think he lives around here, but someone I know used to work out with him. I think they still do. But I forget the Navy SEAL that came out for the coin toss a few years. Slater?
Oh, the one who for Penn State?
Yeah.
So there was, and again, I'm sorry to cut you off because I could be telling a different story, but there was it was right before I got to Penn State. There was a gentleman who was a former Navy SEAL who walked onto the football team. And I think he just went by Slater.
Okay. All right. I didn't know that. That's good to know. Navy SEAL on Penn State. Wow. Really?
Because we used to tell stories when we would do our summer conditioning, they would have like a 6 a.m., a 7 a.m., and an 8 a.m. start time. And so you could, depending on your position group, you go to, hey, we're the 7 a.m., we're the 8 a.m. And Slater would do 6, 7, and 8 a.m. and do the conditioning 3 times. And summer conditioning was no joke. But he was a different breed. Never met the guy, but heard a lot of stories about him.
So, okay. So I listened to Goon and Ironhead, Keith Goon Conlon, Jeff Byers, daily. And they have so many episodes. I found them like a few months ago. I listen to them every day. And Goon talks about in the mornings going out to practice at camp, and it was wet. The grass was wet. They just mowed the grass. He said they had like a limited selection of breakfast stuff you could get. And he just said it was horrible, going there getting wet early in the morning.
Yeah, it's I can literally what you just said. I can feel the grass. I can smell the ag fields. I can feel that wet dew that makes your pants wet and then your feet are wet. And then as the day goes on or the practice goes on, it gets hot and now it's steamy. And I love playing football. I absolutely hated camp, whether it was college, the NFL. Like I was just watching the Steelers, I think, reported today.
Uh-huh.
And I'm watching everyone, walk into the dorms with a trobe. I'm like, I don't miss any of that. That was absolutely terrible. Like it was absolutely terrible. But it's the price you pay to have all the other good stuff. And in the big scheme of a football season, it's not that much time. But yes, it's not fun.
No. Well, I'll say even in high school, like did not play Division I or the NFL, anything like that. But even in high school, we would go out. We were out there at 7 a.m. We still did two-a-days when I was playing. They don't do it anymore. Still did two-a-days. We would go out in the morning. It'd be wet. It would be, it wasn't quite hot, but it was still hot. And you're tired. And we did it for 2 weeks. I mean, that's what they still did when I played in 2010.
Right.
And, like the pads and stuff, they'd be wet from sweat and the morning dew. And you put it in a room, a concrete room, there's no ventilation at all.
No.
And you never washed it for like months. And
the whole
you just
season
went in and got it. It smelled horrible. I mean, that's just part of it, man. That's just part of football.
So the one nice thing is when you get to Division I, close ever the entire season. And, your practice years, you could stand up by itself in your locker. It got so stiff and nasty. And you're right, that smell of just, but that's high school football, man.
Yep, 100%. Well, Sean, we were talking about Matt Campbell.
Yeah.
And how excited we are to have him. What's it like playing for Joe Paterno? What's it like walking into the locker room day one and you're playing at Penn State for Joe Paterno? Because you fit the mold 100%. So,
yeah, honestly, I think after day one, he's just Coach Paterno. I started at Penn State in 2000. So Joe had been doing it for a long time at a high level already, and he had the notoriety and, considered one of the all-time greats, when I got to Penn State. So I think at first there was a little bit of, I don't want to say starstruck, but just kind of like that pinched me. Like, man, like I'm sitting here in a team meeting in State College, Pennsylvania, about to put on, the white helmet with the blue stripe. In comes Coach Paterno with his thick yellow tinted glasses. The guy couldn't have been more than 140 pounds and, probably 5'7", 5'8" at best. But still a larger than life character. And the one thing, about Joe is that and it's going to sound kind of corny, but like he was who he was. And he wasn't going to change for anybody. And he stood by it. And his standard was the standard. It didn't matter who you were, where you came from. If you're going to be part of that team, you were going to follow a certain set of rules and do things the way he wanted them to be done. But everyone understood that the why behind it is because Joe was developing men, not just football players. And he wasn't going to sacrifice his development of young men to win one more game. And that's one thing I've always respected about him, still do to this day, and share with people all the time, is like he treated everybody fairly. I always say, I think I did a post on it recently, it doesn't mean equally, but everybody fairly. But he demanded the best out of everybody, whether you were an equipment manager, a walk-on, or an All-American. Like Joe wanted to get more out of you and figure out how can I make you not just the best football player, but the best person when you leave Penn State, so you can go make your communities better, businesses better, be a good father, be a good husband. And it kind of goes back to when, talked about going to Penn State, of what my parents saw in Coach Paterno and his staff and what they wanted me to be a part of, and really made the decision pretty easy. But, I have nothing but the utmost respect for Coach Paterno. And, we were talking earlier, and, Penn State and Coach Paterno helped me through probably one of the hardest times of my life. I don't know if we want to get into it now or wait, but my sophomore year at Penn State, my mom had been battling ovarian cancer. and for a couple of years was in remission, and it came back, and ended up getting a phone call from, actually, it was our academic advisor, Todd Kolka, who's still around the program, comes to me. I was in the facility for something. He says, go call your dad. You need your dad called. He's looking for you. Call your dad. And back then, it wasn't anything crazy because, we didn't have cell phones the way we have now. We had cell phones, but you weren't always, tied in and glued to everything. No one was text messaging. So call my dad, and he let me know that, hey, like unfortunately, like things need to turn for the worse. And like they were down in Florida, where my mom had vacationed most of her life, growing up, and it was kind of her special place. My dad took there thinking it's gonna be the last time they get back there. So I got on an airplane and flew down to Florida. But the first person I called was Fran Ganner, who was my position coach, as I'm in the car driving home. And the next person was Coach Paterno. And for not the first time, but for the first real time, I wasn't talking to my position coach or the offense coordinator. I wasn't talking to the head coach or Joe Paterno, the all-time winningest coach in, college football. I was talking to men who only cared about me as a person. Football wasn't even a thought. It was, what can we do for you? How can we help you? And the support was just incredible. And then you fast forward maybe a week, and we're back in my hometown. We talked about Chagrin Falls, and I'd been, with my family the whole time, and we're going to the service. And we pull into the church where I'd gone to church since the late 80s, St. Joan of Arc. And there were two big, like, tour-style Greyhound-type buses in the church parking lot, and didn't really think much of it because my mind was elsewhere. But as my family's walking into the church, the doors open, and off marches about 60 of my Penn State teammates. And Coach Paterno had organized the buses so those players could travel from State College, drive 5 hours in one of those buses to my hometown, sat for an hour-long service, got back on the buses, drove 5 hours back. And like that, as tough as that time was, like that's something that sticks with me to this day. I get emotional even thinking about it. Like that's how big of a deal it is. So, the controversy, people want to talk about Paterno, like I'll swing on someone if you want to talk trash about Coach Paterno. Like I'm that passionate about it because it truly got me through, like I said, the toughest, most challenging time in my life. And I was very fortunate. I had great teammates. My wife now was my girlfriend then, so I had the support of her. We met our freshman year in college and her family. So I had a really good support system, but like you spend so much time with your teammates and those coaches. And to see not just the fact that Coach Paterno organized it, but that players made the sacrifice to spend 10 hours on a bus so that they could support a teammate for 1 hour at a church funeral service, just means the world to me. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about Penn State and why I will defend Coach Paterno against any naysayers. Like I said, and I joke about swinging on people. I'll get close to it. But it's one of the memories that's who Coach Paterno was to me. And I even remember when I came back after being away for a little bit, and Joe took me aside and he said, you got two options. He's like, life's going to put you in a corner, and he's like, you can cower, and let it beat you up. He's like, or you can roll your sleeves up. And in Joe's high pitched voice, and he rolls his sleeves up and he's like, bring it on, Mickey. And he goes, what are you going to do? And that was probably the last we talked about that, other than him checking in on me, but I remember it vividly, being in the team meeting room. Everyone had left, and he pulled me aside, and we had that conversation. But that's it's probably my favorite Joe Pa story. Is around one of the most difficult times in my life, but I think it really speaks to who he was beyond a football coach.
Wow, that's an incredible story, Sean.
Yeah,
I never heard that before.
Yep. What's funny? This, in true Joe fashion, if your professors wouldn't excuse you from class, you couldn't make the trip. So he wasn't going to waiver. You're a student, and you're going to go ask your professor if it's okay to miss this class, and here's why. And if you're excused, please get on the bus, go support your teammate. If you're not excused, than you're going to be in class, because that's why you're here. But yeah, it's and those are the things no one knows, right? Like no one's telling that story. Everyone wants to talk about speculation, rumors, what they've heard, what this, that. But that's who Joe was, and I'm positive I'm not the only Letterman who has a story like that or similar to that, where, you know, he made that big of an impact on their life. But I tell you, you and I aren't sitting here today talking if it wasn't for that man and, you know, the university, and just, and it extended beyond. We could have a whole other podcast on this, but it expanded beyond just the football team, but the community at Penn State, because there was a lot of, you know, write-ups in the newspapers. And obviously I missed a good chunk of school, you know, dealing with that for about a month. But, you know, the professors who supported me, and all those people. And then I always think about it, you know, where Joe told us first day of every class, you sit in the front row, you introduce yourself, which I always did. And so when, you know, you miss some school time, those same professors are the same ones who will spend extra time with you to get you caught up, help you get through things. And I don't know if that's unique to Penn State, but it's all I have for reference. So I'm going to say it is unique to Penn State. But it's just, again, it's why I'm so passionate and just love State College, Happy Valley, Penn State, everything about it.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for telling that story. That's, you know, this show, we defend Joe Paterno endlessly, no matter what. I was never on the side of it was Joe's fault or he did this, he did that. Joe Paterno was Joe Paterno. I had AJ Wallace on here. He talked about Joe Paterno same way you have. He was with him the whole time. Greg Garrity Jr., he didn't play for Joe, but his dad did. Funny, Greg Garrity Jr. said about the big house too. He said it's the least intimidating. It's the, oh man, what did he say? Auditory. He said it's like the least auditory intimidating stadium that there is. He said it's overrated.
Yeah,
but
it's a joke. I hope some Michigan fans hear this too. Put in the comments why we're wrong, because I'll tell you I'm not wrong.
Hey, I wanted to go to the Michigan game this year, but I'm like, those guys are worse than Ohio State fans sometimes. They really are. So
yeah, it's been fun living in this area. You know, even though Michigan's had our number, always seems to. But it's always fun to kind of talk a little trash, get the because all my friends here are Michigan or Michigan State fans. And then I think it was two seasons ago, Penn State played Michigan State at Ford Field. And so we got to go to that game too, and Penn State put up like 550 yards of offense to Michigan State's, 30 yards. So anytime I get a chance to have some bragging rights, living outside Detroit, I take full advantage. And I've lost friends over it, because I'll give them credit. Michigan fans, even though none of them actually went to Michigan, but they are diehard. They have a very good fan base, so I'll give them their props. But it's been fun being able to get my punches in with those guys the times I get.
So as a player, Sean, what's it like to play at Penn State? I mean, you were there for some great games. I mean, Nebraska 2002.
Yeah.
You were LJ's fullback when he ran for 2K.
Yeah. Yep. It was that Nebraska game is definitely one of the highlights when I think back to it. The Miami game, when Adam Talaferro took the team out of the tunnel. God, that I can still remember. It's funny as I talk about it, like it takes me back to some of these games. But I've been very blessed to play, whether it was the NFL or college, just about every major stadium that's out there. But there is nothing like a big game in Beaver Stadium. It's just, again, it's so hard to describe. I wish everyone had a chance to be on the field, before a big play or a big down, after a big play. Because as much as, after the first couple of plays, maybe first drive, it kind of all drowns out and now it just becomes football. When there's a moment in a game, like, you hear the crowd, they're behind you, like you feel it, like there's an energy that's not matched. And some of my best Penn State football memories, honestly, have been going back to games with my wife, my children, other friends, so they can experience Beaver Stadium. And, having a bunch of friends who are Michigan fans, I was always happy to help them get tickets to when Michigan played at Beaver Stadium. And everyone has come back, and I probably had 3 or 4 different groups of friends over the years, and they've all come back and said, you were right. That was an absolute incredible experience. And not only that, but we sat in your Letterman seats, decked out in Michigan gear, and the fans were amazing towards us, and there's something special. And again, you can't describe it. And we didn't have traditional whiteouts when I was there. But that's got to be top 2 or 3 greatest sports traditions now, not just college football, but I'll put it up against anything in sports. And I went to some games in Alabama. It's an incredible time down there. The SEC does it right. We went and saw Alabama versus LSU, which was a 7:30 kickoff. Absolutely electric. But if that's like a 9, a Penn State whiteout's a 10.
Well, so I'll say this. My first whiteout was Alabama in 2011. And I was in the student section. And, man, like, it's so, like you said, I can't explain it. It's so loud. You can't hear yourself yelling.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of scary at first. I was like, the stadium's going to collapse. Dan Connor in the past, he said told Lisa Salters, you have to hold your helmet because it's rattling, because it's so loud. I mean, the field shakes when you're on it, right? I mean, when you're playing.
Yeah. No, I mean, you literally can feel the energy. And it's not just, like something people say. Like, when I say feel, you physically feel the energy on that field. Like, it got so crazy. Even on offense, we would have to practice with noise for home games. So I don't know if you ever, had the opportunity to see how they do that, but, they wheel out these giant speakers and put them all around the huddles, sidelines on the practice field, and they just pump like static, like you're watching the old snow channels at the highest volume you can get to where you're reading lips. And even that doesn't prepare you for those moments in Beaver Stadium. Now, fortunately, playing offense most of the time, the student section never quieted down, which is cool.
No.
But like a lot of times you could get a Zach Mills to give the kind of like, hey, we need to be able to hear a little bit. And then the fans would adhere. But when the defense was out there, man, like, I'm sorry, you better get some signals, be able to read lips, because it's just insane.
So, all right. So your Penn State days, and then we'll get into the NFL and the Steelers.
Sure.
By the way, I brought this today for you. Fellow Penn State fullback, Steelers great, Franco Harris. I was at that Raiders game, the 50th anniversary. Very cold. It was -20.
Oof.
I mean, you talk about great Penn State fullbacks, Sean. You were certainly one of them for sure. Fullback is one of my favorite positions. Matt Suhey, Joe Suhey, Milne, Franco, Lawler, Brandon Snow. I mean, just the same mold every time. The same look, the same play style. Pretty much.
Put your hard hat on, grab your lunch bucket, go to work.
Yeah. So, who was your? Well, would you say Joe had the biggest impact on you as a coach when you were at Penn State? Yeah,
I certainly would. I spent a lot of time with Fran Ganner because he was my position coach. So made a good connection with him, and we just reconnected recently, which was kind of fun. And had a phone call. It's one of the tough things when you get older and you have kids, and keeping those connections together becomes a little more challenging. But the Penn State community, as big as it is also very small. So Fran ran into someone who's like, oh, like you were Sean, like I know, like, so we connected. But I do believe, and I think a lot of it's probably because of some of the challenges that I talked about going through there. But I also think a couple of the people who probably don't get as much recognition is, our strength coaches, John Thomas and Jeremy Scott. Jeremy's back with the program now in a different capacity. Yep. But like those guys, they really are responsible for teaching you what it takes to be a Division I college athlete, because I was in high school. I was 6'5", 255 pounds, and could run a 4.740 as a senior in high school, and thought I had it all figured out. And then you quickly realize within about 2 or 3 days of starting freshman camp, everybody was that same person at their school. And you're all the top of the top. And what I thought was hard work was, again, probably a level 5 from the expectations JT and Jeremy had for the squad. And so those guys, I also think, were really instrumental in developing, the toughness in me, the mental and physical toughness, and just really learning how to prepare, take care of your body. I don't think strength coaches in general get enough credit for what they do for, an organization and players individually. So I look at it as, kind of raised by a community, takes a village type thing. So Joe certainly was ahead of that. But there was a handful of people that really had big impacts on me that I wish I would have done a better job keeping in touch with. I actually ran into Jeremy Scott at the stadium. Like I mentioned, I was doing a tour not long ago. Wasn't expecting to see him. Didn't even know he was back with Penn State, and bumped into him. And it was like, 20 plus years have gone by, but it was also like no time had gone by. And that's one of the cool things about, having that Penn State community.
Yeah. I've heard about the workouts. People speak highly of them in the sense of what it did for them. They don't speak highly of it when they're going through it. Man, just unbelievable what you guys did in the weight room. It was endurance.
I carried a trash bag of puke out of that weight room to the dumpster quite often. And that was the rule. You can puke, no problem. Do it in the trash can, and then you're going to take it out to the dumpster. And by the way, you're up. Your next set's starting right now.
Go empty it. Hurry up.
Yep. But it'll turn you from an 18-year-old punk into a 18-year-old less of a punk. We'll put it that way. Real quickly. Those guys do an awesome job, and I'm sure the people they have with the program now are doing the same.
Yeah. So, quick story: when I was at Penn State football camp, I went to camp from 8th grade on. I went to kicking camp, senior camp, I went to all the camps with all the coaches. Like I had Jay Paterno, I had Mike McQuarrie, I had Kermit Buggs. And I think it was the senior camp. They really pushed us like hard, because I think it was mainly a recruiting tool. They were they were trying to push us, like, see if we would break. And JT put us through a workout, and I just remember he had us doing 6 inches, holding your feet up, laying down, holding your feet up 6 inches off the ground. People today probably don't even know what that is, but 6 inches, that was terrible. He had us doing that for like 10 minutes straight. I mean, and I was like, I had tears in my eyes. I was in so much pain. We were just doing body weight stuff.
Yeah.
And they had us doing like the towels, they had the towels, pulling the towels, the negatives and the positive,
the manual resistance. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And Mike, he was running us around in circles like crazy. But that right there, I was like, man, I know that's not even close to what these guys go through, but that was hard, very hard. So I can only imagine what you went through. Well,
I think what you learn too is when you're going through, especially for the first few times, you're like, this is ridiculous. There's no need for this. But there is a point in every person's career or season when you're stuck in wind and it's 3rd and short, and you either got to get a first down to keep the drive going, or you got to get a stop to get the ball back, and you're hurt and your head's, ringing and you can't see straight, and, you feel like you're going to pass out. And it's like, nope, I've been here before. I've felt this before. I survived. I got one more play, and it's all by design. And it's hard to, again, when you're an 18-year-old kid, you don't get it. But the longer I'm away, the more I understand the purpose behind everything. But there's a design behind the challenging training and pushing guys to their limits. And it's to prepare you for those moments, because they're going to come and you don't know when they're going to come, but they're going to come, and you've already proven to yourself that you can fight through it. You can push through the pain, push through the discomfort, because you've been taught how to do it already. So as much as I hate it, and I don't want to ever do it again, there's a purpose for it. And I'm grateful that I went through it back then.
Yep. Okay. Time-wise, Sean, you all right?
Yeah, we're doing good.
Okay. All right. So your favorite teammate at Penn State, you played with Sean Mayer, Anthony Adams, Jimmy Kennedy, Zach Mills, LJ, Bryant Johnson. I mean, you played Gus Felder was a guy that I had at senior camp.
Okay.
Whew. Man, that guy was a nice guy, but he was scary.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah.
He was helping us stretch, I remember, after we did our workouts. He was like, he was one of the guys. And Terrell Golden was there, too. He was cool.
Okay. Yeah, so this one's going to surprise you, and you might have to think a little bit on this one, and I'm going to throw them out there. But one of my roommates, my junior and senior season, we were in Nittany Apartments, was one of our kickers, who was a state high kid. His name was David Kimball. His name is David Kimball. We still speak today. You brought up Goon. So there may or may not be, I don't want to, I can't give too much away, but there may or may not be a group chat with a handful of us former players in it. That gets pretty colorful from time to time. But Kimball, he was like you couldn't ever be bored around him. You could not laugh around him. He was a heck of an athlete too. And it was funny, as a kicker, he was always like one of the strongest guys, but all kickers, and you said you went to a kicking camp, so maybe you can understand, all kickers are a little bit off. There's something a little bit different about him. He's no exception. But my wife is actually a state high graduate, so they knew each other in high school. And then Dave and I played in NFL Europe together for the Frankfurt Galaxy. So after being out of college for a couple of years, we were reunited just by chance, and have stayed in touch ever since. So he's one guy I look at. Easy Smith, who was a year behind me, still in touch with him. And then there's a handful of other guys. But having lived with Kimball for a couple of years, and again, we're 22 years since we graduated from college, still talking just about every single day.
So I remember him. I remember the Ohio State game. I think it was 2002. They had that 59-yarder at the end, and he
lost the game for us. I talked to him every day. Yeah, hey, Kimball, remember when you blew that easy kick we set up for you? It's only 61 yards into the wind.
They fought their way down, and then he missed it, But he won a Super Bowl with the Patriots, right? Or I thought he won a Super Bowl.
No, Kimball did not. He did play in the league for a couple of years. He wasn't the most accurate, and I hope he hears this too, because he knows it. But he could kick the ball out of the stadium. Those guys loved our kickoff coverage, because you weren't going to have to do anything. You're just going to go for a little bit of a jog, because that ball was going through the back of the stadium every single time. And then one of my favorite on-field memories is that Nebraska game, that was also 2002, I believe. I think we beat them 40-7 in Beaver Stadium. But at the end of the game, it might have been our last or second to last time we scored, Kimball kicks off and their returner breaks free. And it is Kimball and their returner one-on-one, open field. And this kid thought he was going to run Dave over. And Dave lowers his shoulder. And this kid, you can find it on YouTube. And this kid flips up in the air 3 times. And talk about the crowd going crazy when a kicker lays out a returner from Nebraska. And Dave, he talks about it every day too, to remind us about what a big hitter he was. But it was, and that was just Campbell. It was like, you didn't even know what you were doing. This kid ran into you, just happened to get the better of him. But we've got some fun stories like that.
I do remember that because I've watched that game. One thing I do is I go back and watch old games. Like people are like, how do you do that? I'm like, I just love watching Penn State football. So I remember that. Cool Kitchen has it on YouTube. He has a bunch of old games on there, and he does great work on YouTube. But yeah, I remember that. And Jeremy Boone, he was another good tackler.
Yeah,
he could hit.
Yeah,
I remember.
Who was the kid who was a kid? This was well after my time. Who would go down and lay returners out, and then the other teams kind of caught on to it, and then they started taking it to him, and he learned real quick. And I'm blanking on his name. I can picture him. I just blanking on his name.
Joey Julius, yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So Maryland, I remember Maryland at home in 2016. They really tried to. The one kid got kicked out.
Yeah, you're right.
That's when they were trying to cheap shot him, and that just amped up everyone even more. I remember the crowd was so amped up. Saquon was like doing backflips over people. Great game. But man, that's one of my favorite games I've ever watched at Penn State. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Michigan, he just laid, like, we lost against Michigan. We got blown out, and he's just clotheslining people. He looks like Deacon Jones out there.
And that's crazy. What happens, though. You get away with a couple of them, and then the other guys catch on pretty quick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And you get a big old target on your back. And I'll tell you what, those kickers aren't wearing the same pads I was wearing. They're not protected like I used to be.
No. Well, Sean, Penn State wise, is there anything else? I mean, we'll do this again because there's a lot more time we can.
Yeah, no, I said like this is, and it's and I'll be completely honest and transparent. Like, I could talk about this stuff every night of the week for the rest of my life and never get tired of it. It's just, that's how, like I said, and we didn't even really have much time to get into life after Penn State, but if you're willing, have me back on anytime you want, because I would love to continue to go through it and we can talk more Penn State. I think you're going to ask me like any other Penn State stories or memories to share. And you know what, I think, and I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, but being married, my wife and I have been married, better get this right, 21 years. We met our our second semester of freshman year in a math class at Penn State, and been together ever since. So she's diehard Penn State. Her whole family's diehard Penn State. So my son and I have been to a couple of Big Ten championship games. We took the kids to LA for the Rose Bowl a few years back. And like, I think, beyond just my experiences, I've really enjoyed being able to share Penn State with my family, my friends. And again, everyone, whether, my kids are biased now, even my son who goes to University of Alabama, like came downstairs for dinner in a Penn State shirt. Every time we're back in Happy Valley, it's, hey, can you grab me a t-shirt, grab me this, like he knows all the players. My daughter, it's at the very top of her list to look at for school. She'll be a senior in high school next year. But I think that's really like what Penn State is to me now. It's more than football. It's more than the university. It's really like something that our families rallied around. Like I said, I've been very fortunate and blessed in my life to be able to have some of these opportunities. But to see two Big Ten championship games and have my son with me and, have our family out in Pasadena for the Rose Bowl, which was that awesome game against Utah, and it's raining and they're playing Sweet Caroline, and my daughter, who was, God, probably 13, 14 at that time, singing her lungs out, like having the best time ever. Like, that's Penn State. Getting back on campus, going to the Creamery. When we were back this past weekend, my favorite ice cream spot was Myers Dairy. I kind of made a joke on my Instagram, which I only got a couple hundred followers because it's so new, no one cares. I thought it was funny of doing my Barstool ice cream reviews because Creamery's amazing, but like we were going to Myers Dairy. We wanted to put weight on. It was, hey, go grab 2.5 gallons of whole milk from Myers Dairy, put those in the fridge at the apartment. That's what we're drinking to get, put some weight on. But there's so many other things, like the outdoors that you can do at Penn State. That's like fly fishing as a class. Like it's so much more. And again, it's hard to describe. I know I'm starting to ramble. I get excited talking about it, but it's much more than just football or one memory or one person. It's just really ingrained in our lives.
Yep. And now they have Dr. Pete's. So that's, a Penn State product. You know what I'm talking about, Dr. Pete's?
No.
So
what is
Dr.
it?
Pete's. Dr. Pete's drink, Penn State. I'll pull it up here for you.
Dr. Pete's, because I'm going to be back in Happy Valley at the end of this week. I'm going to find it.
I hope they still have it. They should. Dr. Pete's. All right, I'm going to pull it up so you can. So it's like a casein drink. All right. Can you see that? So Dr. Pete's right here. So I've been doing bodybuilding for, almost 15 years now. And I forget when this came out, but this is something that I frequent after the gym is Dr. Pete's. It was made by him. Recovery drink. They have it in all the athlete fridges and oh yeah. But you talk about whole milk.
I was at the creamery last week. I'm gonna have to go back up there Thursday and Friday of this week and try that out.
Yeah, so I think they still have it. It's been a while.
Dr. Pete, if he's listening, to sponsor your show.
Yeah. He would be one of the first for sure.
Well, what's funny, Mark? This will be our third podcast we can do together. We can talk bodybuilding.
Sure.
My wife's an NPC competitor.
Oh, wow.
In the bikini category. She's 3 weeks out from show 1 this year. And then she'll be in Pittsburgh for nationals in early September. And I don't compete, but I'm just kind of a gym rat now.
Yeah.
And I just love it. So it's funny. I did another podcast with the Steelers crew not long ago, and that guy's into bodybuilding. And like I said, my wife competes and she's incredible. I can't keep up with her diet and being strict like she is, but I'll go crush some weight every single morning. Try to look like I can still play football. I can't, but at least look like I could.
Oh, you look like you could for sure. And you don't have to tell people you can. You can just say, yeah, I can,
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm going to get winded going upstairs to go to bed tonight. But
yeah. Yeah, I'm 33 now. Sometimes when I'm in the gym, I'm like, all right, I'm not 23 anymore. Still feel good, but
yeah. Well, I competed in powerlifting for a bunch of years, and I which kind of scratched that itch of like the physical challenge and the camaraderie of the guys I trained with. And after tearing a bicep, having rotator cuff and labrum surgery, I'm like, this is a hobby I'm doing for fun. Rehabbing for 6 months to get my shoulder back isn't worth it. So I backed off a little bit and kind of just switched over to more bodybuilding. And like you said, being a little bit smarter and listening to the body.
Yeah. You do have to listen to your body. My chest is on fire right now from last night. And I'm like, all right, gotta warm up a little bit tonight for back and, just go a little slower since I'm not fully recovered yet. But
so you're an evening gym guy?
Yeah, I go after work.
Oof.
Yes.
Nope.
So what I do is when I wake up in the morning, I do cardio. I have a bike here, and so just to get me going a little bit. And then, I go after work. I work till like 5:30, 6 o'clock every night. So, I like, going to work going to the gym and doing leg day and then going to work, your day is like 10 times better because you're just you're so energized from that workout.
Yeah.
But I like the later evening, but I used to go in the mornings. But I'm not really, I've never really been a morning guy, if you will.
Okay.
Now, if I played football at Penn State, I would probably be a morning guy my whole life, but
no choice.
Yeah, exactly. Like Goon said, you're on the field at what I forget what he said. He's like, yeah, we were up at 5 a.m.
Oh, it's terrible. It doesn't matter. It could be 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 3 a.m. It didn't matter at that point.
Yeah. It's early, it's early.
Too early.
Absolutely. So, and yeah, sure, we can talk about that. We probably know some of the same people. I'll have to have you ask your wife like who she knows in the fitness world, because man, I was an athlete for a supplement company, Callum Von Moger. I listen to Dave Palumbo every week. Like he's oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she's been doing it for about 10 years and really going after that IFBB Pro card is kind of her ultimate goal. And I'll tell you what's wild is the longer I've been around the sport, is she competes in the Masters division now because we're a little bit older than you by about 10 or 11 years. But we did Pittsburgh Masters Nationals 2 years ago, and she was in the 40 to 45 age group. These women who came out in the 50 to 55, unreal. Like the level these athletes are at in all the categories. And these aren't IFBB pros yet. These are just MPC national qualifiers. It's insane. Absolutely insane. And I think really, knowledge has gotten so much easier to share with social media and, everyone's got data now. So a lot of, training is data driven and there's more information about nutrition. But it's incredible. So a ton of respect for you because I see what she goes through. And like I said, I don't feel like doing cardio one day. I don't do cardio. By the way, that's every day. Cardio kills gains. Everyone knows that. So
of course.
Yeah, it's you guys are a different breed to be able to put yourselves through that. And I'm fortunate to see it firsthand.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Yeah, it's you had the foundation playing college football, NFL. I always say this to people, athletes, especially football players. I'm like, you guys are bodybuilders right now.
Yeah.
If you just cut down a little bit, you could step on a stage right now. I mean, these guys are in insane shape. You know what I mean? But you're right. Like AJ Wallace, you remember what he looked like in college. He was a defensive back. That guy is a bodybuilder now. His delts are like bigger than my head. I mean, he's huge. He's the same thing. He's trying to become a pro, and man, it's insane. His transformation, it's insane because I followed his career. From the time he announced his commitment to Penn State all the way through. But it is a different world, man. It's a great thing to be a part of for sure.
It is. What's been fun too? It's like we're morning people. So we'll both be in bed within the next hour. She'll get up at probably 4. I'll get up at 4:30. She'll do her cardio first, and then I'll show up to the gym and we'll train together. But it's a fun way for us to, get to spend some time together every day. And there's no work, there's no kids, there's no bills, there's no this, that, the other. It's just like, hey, we got our hour and a half to go train. And, when she's in prep, it's a little bit harder because she's doing 3 leg days a week. I'm doing leg day every other week. 3 chest and arm days now. So it's a little bit harder when she's in prep because, as you got to be dialed in. But it's a fun way to spend some time together. And I agree. I think it's a natural transition a lot of athletes can make. The hardest part, though, is the discipline around the nutrition and the diet. Is for so long as a football player, it was like, you got to get bigger, got to get bigger, got to get bigger. And we weren't getting bigger the way bodybuilders get bigger with packing on good lean tissue. We were just eating calories. Like I said, it was whole milk, chocolate milk, get another pizza. I don't think you have DP dough anymore in State College, but like DP dough calzones was like the big thing for us. We would, just be crushing those every night. Just how much weight can I put on? Because once camp starts, you're going to lose 10, 15 pounds like that. But it's been a lot of fun. And like I said, it'll be fun as we get to spend more time together to talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. Sean, to get into the final topic here, you went to the NFL.
Yeah.
And I do remember this. You were on the Lions, and you were with Coach Dan Campbell, Motor City Dan Campbell. He was a tight end, and I remember they went 0-16, and the story was you weren't good enough to play on the Lions, who went 0-16, but you were good enough to be starting for the Steelers on a Super Bowl team. that says a lot to me. That says a lot about the organization of the Steelers and how well run it is. First of all, to have a guy like you who came from Penn State, was the epitome of just football, Joe Paterno, Penn State, to go into the NFL. Can you talk a little bit about your journey through the NFL, and then we'll cap it off with
Yeah,
Steelers,
of course.
my team, and winning the Super Bowl. Great season. You did great with the Steelers. I remember. I like I said, Sean. I've been following you, and you were just a great story for me personally as Penn State and Steelers fan. So
Yeah, so the Cliff Notes version of the NFL career is I was drafted in the 7th round. It was like pick 241 out of 250 to Green Bay. Spent my rookie year, to Tennessee. Didn't make the Tennessee Titans. Spent my rookie year in Green Bay, which was really cool. Like, not a whole lot going on in Green Bay but the Packers. But like, I'm a Midwest guy, grew up in Ohio, and I know PA is not technically the Midwest, but might as well be. And then to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and it was Brett Favre was there, so like I got to be teammates with Brett Favre. Like, how cool is that? Aaron Rodgers was drafted the year after, so the fact he's still playing for the Steelers and he's a year younger than me is absolutely incredible. Like, the longevity, and I think you look at a Ben Roethlisberger at, I don't know, 18 seasons, all with the Steelers is just crazy. So really good time, my rookie year. You can't pick a more NFL city really than Green Bay. And again, a lot of it's because there's nothing else there, right? Like, Pittsburgh's got some cool stuff going on. Pittsburgh's a great town, like, don't get me wrong, Steelers fans, I'll put them up against Green Bay fans. But it was a cool place to spend my rookie season, and then was released by Green Bay after the next training camp. And that's when my career in Detroit started. So spent 3 seasons with the Detroit Lions. Up and down practice squad my first couple of seasons there, would get on the active roster, put back down to practice squad. Steve Mariucci, this is going to date me. Steve Mariucci was the coach when I got to Detroit. He ended up getting let go halfway through the season. They hired Rod Marinelli the next year. Rod Marinelli was kind of like an old school, gritty, tough coach. But he brought in Mike Martz, who was with the St. Louis Rams during their big run to the Super Bowl, and Kurt Warner and the Greatest Show on Turf. And one thing about Mike Martz, and it kind of reminded me of Joe in this one area, is he didn't care who you were. He didn't care when you were drafted. He didn't care how much the Ford family was paying you. He could care less. How good were you at today's practice? And if you weren't good, I'm putting the other guy in tomorrow. And that's all that he cared about. And so it resonated with me coming from Penn State, because that's how Paterno ran the team. Like, no one, I don't care, you're a 4-star, you're a walk-on, it doesn't matter to me. Everyone's putting on a helmet. You're going out on the field. We're going to put the best guys out there, which in the NFL, not the way that works all the time. General manager takes a shot on a player, early round draft pick. He's going to get his chance. It's just the way it is. It's the business part of it. So Mike Marsh gave me some opportunities, which was kind of cool. I got to, get on the field a little bit more. He was responsible for kind of putting me in that hybrid fullback, tight end, H-back role, if you will, which is what helped me land in Pittsburgh. And then you're right. And then they brought in Dan Campbell, and I backed up Dan Campbell for a season. And everything you see about Dan Campbell, everything you read about Dan Campbell, if you watch Hard Knocks with Dan Campbell, that is exactly who Dan Campbell is. There's not an ounce of show. It's not turned up. It's not exaggerated. That was Dan Campbell. The only difference is back in the day, he had really long hair. We used to call him Dirty Dan. But one of the most genuine, good people I've ever had the chance to be around. Just a really good guy. When you're in a position group and you have your veterans and you have your young guys, at times there can be a little bit of like, I'm protecting my job. So, hey, you second-year player, I'm not really going to give you a whole lot of help. I'm not going to remind you what play this is. I'm not going to remind you of your footwork because I'm preserving my job. That wasn't Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell would help you. He'd stay after. He'd, kind of cheat for you with, hey, this play's coming up. I just saw coaches. You know what you're doing? I got you. Like, just a genuine good dude. You can tell that his locker room in Detroit now is bought into him because he is genuine. The city of Detroit's bought into Dan because he's blue collar. He's that grit that Detroit was known for. So spent 3 years here, and then, like you said, I was getting ready to go out and start practice for the first week of that season. Final cuts had already happened, and I got the tap on the shoulder that Millen wants to see you, Penn State guy. And Matt and I always had a good relationship because, again, he was a Penn State guy. So I was still strange. Why the hell does Matt Millen want to talk to me, before practice? And then it was strange for about 2 seconds before it all clicked. Like, oh, I've been here before. And very nice and tactfully, Matt explained, hey, you got to make some room. We got an injury over here. We're bringing a guy in this week. We're going to try to get you back next week. Appreciate everything you've done. Make sure you leave your playbook in your locker, whatever. See ya. Good luck. And maybe an hour, 2 hours later, I get a phone call from my agent, and he says, hey, you're going to get a phone call from a 412 number. Answer the phone. And next thing you know, it was, and it wasn't Mike Tomlin at first. I think he was the second phone call. But what happened is, and this is one story I love to share with people, is Detroit, we were playing Cincinnati in Cincinnati in our second preseason game. So AFC North, you have Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. So I had already been demoted on the depth chart from Detroit and didn't play until the second half of that preseason game, which you and I both know no one cares about preseason football to begin with, let alone the second half of a preseason game. But I remember, feeling sorry for myself, and Dan had some very encouraging words that only Dan can explain. And it kind of struck a chord with me. And I decided, I don't care if it's first half, second half, I'm going to go show these guys they made a mistake. And I ended up playing a really good half of football. And again, no one cared. I don't know. My wife probably turned the game off. I'm sure my dad turned the game off by that point. No one cares. And, but I cared, and, Dan Campbell cared. And when I finally got to talk to Tomlin, he told me the story. He said, we're there breaking down Cincinnati film because we play them twice a year. And this number 49 from Detroit kept jumping off the screen from us. We're trying to write down defensive fronts, down in situational football. But everyone just kept looking at this 49 from Detroit. And it's we need depth. We could use a guy who can play tight end and fullback, fill 2 roster spots with one guy. And the only reason I ended up in Pittsburgh and winning a Super Bowl when the Detroit Lions went 0-16, the worst team in the history of the NFL, is because of a meaningless preseason game in Cincinnati in the middle of August that nobody cared about, that I just happened to have a little bit of encouragement from a pretty good football coach now, and some choice words when I was, being a victim in all of this. And that's it. So, I'd love to share that story because it's been true of life for me. It's you don't know when your opportunities are going to come. You don't know who's watching. And I always tell people, if you're doing something, you do it to the best of your ability. I don't care. If you have one person watching, you have a million people watching. You don't know what opportunities are passing you by while you're taking the easy way, or you're coasting through things, going through the motions. And I'm so glad I had that experience, but that's how I got to Pittsburgh. And then, of course, it's a fairy tale from there. We go 12-4. I'm back in Pennsylvania. I'm from the Cleveland area. So as much as Cleveland and Pittsburgh hates each other, it was fun being a Cleveland guy, being in Pittsburgh, because I had all my friends still. So all, good-natured fun. But having access to Penn State again and getting Penn State news and updates, which is awesome. Being able to get back to Happy Valley once in a while because it's only, a 2-hour drive or whatever it was. But it also just kind of renewed my love of the NFL, my love of football. Losing stinks. It does. Getting cut stinks. Having a journeyman career is not always fun. So it was the perfect way to kind of finish, a 6-year NFL career. I spent one more season on injured reserve. But just to have that experience and be in that locker room among Hall of Famers, guys who are already in the Hall of Fame, more will be joining the Hall of Fame. I was talking to someone the other day and what about the star players on defense? And I'm name them. Like they were all star players. These guys were all there was no slouch. And then look at the opposite side of the ball: Hines Ward, Santonio Holmes, Willie Parker. Obviously,
Yep.
Ben's career speaks for itself. So it was just an amazing, experience. And I will say, I'll use the word blessed. I was very blessed to have that experience and get to be a part of what I got to be a part of and have a Lombardi Trophy and a Super Bowl ring. And more than that, the memories and the experience. It was an amazing way to end a very tough but rewarding NFL career.
Yeah. Sean, your journey was very, very unique. I remember, for example, Dan Campbell first when he was the coach for the Dolphins under Coach Philbin, tight ends coach. I just remember him talking. I'm like, yeah, I like that guy.
Yeah.
So that's when like Incognito was on the team. I think it was Reggie Bush was their running back. Pat Devlin was on that team. I can't remember Cameron Blake was still on that team. He might have been. But
D-Wake,
yeah. So I remember and you played with him. So I remember him from that. But yeah, your story, man, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You go from Penn State, you go from Ohio to Penn State to the NFL and your journey through that. And then you end up at the Steelers and you were a key part of that Super Bowl team. And, greatest, you had front row seats to greatest play ever in Super Bowl history.
Probably two of them, honestly,
endings.
two of them. Probably the Holmes catch in the corner at the end of the game. And then James Harrison's 100-yard plus return, I go down and say that's probably two of the best plays that's happened in the Super Bowl.
Exactly, top two in one game. So, you were there. Now, I guess, do you have your Super Bowl ring? Do you keep it? Do you have it with you?
It's sitting in one of my gun safes.
Okay,
10 feet from me.
All right. Awesome. It's cool that, is that a important thing for you to hold on to? Some guys, you hear stories I don't care about jewelry, is it something that you you ever wear it?
I don't ever wear it. If I'm doing a speaking engagement, because I'll have an opportunity to kind of share my story and from time to time. And when I do, I wear it. But to me, it's a symbol. It's not about the gold and the diamonds, and it's really a symbol of and a couple of things is number one, believing in yourself and never giving up and create a goal, have a dream and go get it. Don't let anyone stop you. But even more than that, and one thing I always want to make very clear, because like I said, I was very blessed, very fortunate to have these experiences and some of the achievements, but none of it's possible without an amazing support system and people who believe in you, people who want to see you succeed, people who pour into you. And I'll use the word blessed because it's the truth, is from the time I was in high school, I grew up in an amazing community of people who supported me. I had coaches at Chagrin Falls High School, Mark Imarino, Paul Perrine, Pat Weigel, Tommy Imarino, just men who cared about me, not just because I was a pretty good football player, but they were just good people and they supported the heck out of me. And then I get to Penn State and I have more of that, right? And then I talked about losing my mom and the support that, I'm not talking to you if it's just relying on myself and my own will and grit to persevere through all of that. And I'm smart enough at, my mid 40s now to know that none of this happens without amazing support, people who believe in you, people who sacrifice for you. I think about my poor wife, never knowing where she's going to live. We lived in, 12 different apartments in a 6 NFL season, never had a real home. But never once did she ever suggest you stop chasing your dream. It was, I got you. Where are we going next? You believe you can play? Cool. Me too. Let's go. Don't give up. Having a dad and then 2 sisters support and, my wife's it's that's what it's a symbol of to me. It's not the ring. It's not one game. It's a reminder of, again, how fortunate and blessed I am, to be able to have these conversations and relive these stories. But again, I'm not naive enough to think that any of it happens without having amazing people who believed in you, supported you. And I do my best now. And this is a good reminder right now of, like, every day I try to ask myself, like, hey, like, who did you pour into today? Like, who did you give back to? Who did you help? Because you had people who did it for 20 years, 25 years of your athletic career. So it's a good reminder. And that's what that ring really means to me. So I'll never get rid of it. It'll always be one of my most prized possessions, but it's not because of a monetary value or what it looks like.
Yeah.
It's just that reminder of really what success takes in life. And it's not, one play, one game. It's not anything you do alone. It's ups and downs and, wins and losses and failures to ultimately get to the goal.
Yeah. Great words of wisdom, Sean. Thank you for saying that. That's
my pleasure, man.
Very motivational.
No, I
From a guy
appreciate
like
it.
You. So,
like I said, I wish I could take credit for all of it, but it's stuff I learned along the way. It's and that's, I think what's cool is, when I was in the powerlifting world, there's a guy out of Columbus, Dave Tate, who owns Elite FTS, and he has a saying, it's like, live, learn, pass it on. And it's one of the things I always try to think about now is, like, I got to live it, I've learned it, now how do I pass it on to other people? And
you're doing that now.
No, I appreciate it. And I appreciate you giving me a platform to share some of this. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Sean, it was great to have you on. What you're doing now, if you could just talk about that a little bit, plug your Instagram.
Yeah, so absolutely. I appreciate it. So when I got done playing, I actually met a gentleman, speaking of sports, he was a basketball player at Michigan State. His dad started a mortgage company. He grew the company exponentially to the point where he took the company public, became a billionaire overnight. But I spent 10 years there learning the mortgage business. Last 5 of it, I spent leading sales. He was assistant VP of sales. He now owns the Phoenix Suns, the Phoenix Mercury. Learned so much about the business from him, just business in general. But then about 2 years ago, I got burned out of corporate, just being completely transparent and honest. My son was, entering his junior year in high school. I wanted to be around more for Friday night football and more time with my daughter. So I made a decision to leave corporate and started originating mortgages on my own. I'm partnered with a group out of Pittsburgh. So I do business in Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. I'm really just starting to expand into state college. So if you're in anywhere in Pennsylvania, but if you're in a state college, Pittsburgh area, and you're looking to buy a home, like, hit me up. My Instagram's there. It's at Super Bowl and Mortgages. But have an amazing team and that I work with, and absolutely love the business because it's, an opportunity to help people and interact with people and get a chance to share some of my stories. So yeah, like I said, I've been trying to figure out the social media thing. It's fun. There's my wife. For some reason, her videos do better than mine do on there, and just share just basic mortgage knowledge. A lot of, misconceptions around how it all works. And, depending who you're listening to, you're going to get different advice. So it's, my Instagram kind of goal is to give a lot of mortgage knowledge, but then I also share some football stuff. So you'll see, the stuff with the Steelers in the background. I got a chance to go up to coach some Detroit Lions football last week as well. That's what that one's from. That was actually in Ontario. The Detroit Lions held a camp to try to grow the game outside the state. So I had an opportunity to go spend the day with a bunch of young athletes in Canada, which was awesome. These kids were incredible. Like, one of the things was weird is you walk on that field that's 60 yards wide and 120 yards long. But those kids knew the game. I'll tell you what, and they were good. Like, it was one of the better camps I've gotten to be a part of. So that's what I'm doing now. And like I said, if you ever need any mortgage questions, knowledge, I've seen more mortgages than I care to admit to people doing it for so long. And then, like I said, I like to share some of the leadership and, stuff I've learned from Paterno or Coach Tomlin. Like I said, favorite stuff about State College, some of the areas that I work in, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, man. I like your channel. That's West College right there, I think, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I said, like this social media, like I'm 44 years old. I've never been a big Instagram guy,
Me
but
neither.
I've had some coaches, business coaches, who are like, dude, you got to get active, and use it to tell some of it, tell your story. Part of it you can use, to promote your business. So I'm about 30 days into my Instagram journey. I'm
Okay.
still trying to figure out the kind of content and how I want to do it. But that one in the top left is pretty cool. That was the NFL Players Association. Did a little
Okay.
feature. They have a series called Man in Motion. So got to spend some time talking with them and sharing what I'm doing now. So, football has been a great way to open some opportunities for me.
That's awesome, Sean. Yeah, it's amazing, man. I could tell you really took your football career and your work ethic from that, and you're putting it into what you are now, and you're doing your own thing, and that's amazing. Definitely go follow Sean. I'll be posting his stuff. I've shared a couple things, and we'll plug it. We'll put it below in the description. But Sean, we'll do this again, man.
Yeah, dude, I can't wait.
Thank you for your time. We'll be in touch. But I'll be putting this up probably tomorrow. So I'm going to talk Big Ten Media Days right after this live with one of my guys. So
cool.
We're starting soon. We're starting soon, man. I'm excited. So
it's crazy. I can't believe, like I said, NFL training camp started today, and it's gonna be here before we know it. I'm excited. Yep. But yeah, man, anytime you want me back on, let me know, because like I said, I love talking about this stuff, and I think you do a really good job of mixing up kind of the football part of it to the life lessons, and it's a great platform, man. So keep it up.
Thank you, Sean.
Awesome. All right, man. Enjoy your night. Good luck with that workout.
Thank you.
We'll see you.